not focus too much on it. Just hopefully it comes natural.
Well, the Patriots made 11 draft picks this year. Each of their first 4 picks coming on the offensive side of the ball. They take LSU's offensive tackle Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick. And on day 2, they got Drake May, some more weapons, taking Ohio State running back Travion Henderson and Washington State wideout Kyle Williams. So I start with you, Mina Kimes. They also drafted a kicker and a long snapper, which is so much fun. You would think that Bill Belichick was in the building doing that. What did you think of their draft in terms of supporting May?
Yeah, I don't have any analysis on the kicker or the long snapper, but as far as the rest of the class, particularly the offensive players they took for early on, I absolutely loved what the Patriots did. They went into this draft with, I felt, some pretty glaring needs on offense, and they managed to really address those needs without reaching from a value perspective, starting, of course, with Will Campbell, who they envision as the long-term left tackle of the future who can grow with Drake May. But I want to highlight the next 2 picks because I think what both Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams do is they give this offense big play potential. Henderson was a home run hitter as a back, averaged 7 yards per carry, which is the most of any Power 5 back. And Kyle Williams, out of Washington State, averaged the most yards after catch per reception of any Power 5 receiver. I think he adds a speed element to this group that pairs really nicely with Stephon Diggs and Demario Douglas, who can work the short intermediate parts. So, yeah, I just feel like the Patriots knocked this one out of the park. I think it was a really, really great draft class for them.
Mina, I totally agree, and you focus more on the skill players. I'll take it up front, and if we think about the offseason as a continuum, it really started in free agency, getting guys like Garrett Bradbury, getting Morgan Moses, and then knowing that they're not going to go into the season with Verdarian Lowe at left tackle, they draft Will Campbell. Drake May got hit way too many times last year. To me, that was job number 1. It was great to get those skill players as well, as Mina had mentioned. But if you can't protect a young quarterback, nothing else matters. So I like how, Hannah, they sort of bootstrap this offensive line a little bit in free agency, a little bit in the draft. I think this offensive line should be vastly improved.
Yeah, listen, they needed. Drake May was pressured at the highest rate of any quarterback in the NFL last season, so you have to do that. All right, today is the deadline also for teams to pick up or decline players' 5th-year options. As expected, the Lions have exercised the option on star edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson. He's coming off that season-ending injury, as you know, but he's going to stay in Detroit, of course, through 2025. Really key piece to their defense. They also pick up wide receiver Jamison Williams, his 5th-year option. So, Mikey T, with the deadline here, what do you like? What do you not like? What surprised you with these 5th-year options?
Hannah, I really like what the Dallas Cowboys did. They exercised the option for Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith has been rock solid so far in his career. Started 47 games. And if you're going to invest a first-round pick in Tyler Booker, you're saying we need to have a firm pocket for Dak Prescott. Tyler Smith, Tyler Booker. Look, it's a little expensive at $23.4 million a year. But again, that gives them an offensive line that is now solidified up front. Okay, next we have for the New York Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't like the fact that they exercise the option, and here's why, Hannah. Yeah, Brian Burge, you're paying a lot of money on one side. You just took Abdul Carter on the other side. Kayvon Thibodeau has been a beast so far. He's not a bust. He's a solid player, but I'm assuming to get him on the field, they're going to slide him inside. And look, the price isn't overwhelming at $14.1 million a year, but I don't know you want to pay that for a rotational pass rusher. If he was a more conventional defensive end, I think that's okay. And then lastly, the Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Linderbaum. This one candidly surprises me. Tyler Linderbaum has been a really good player for Baltimore. I assume they want to get a deal done. The problem with the system is the centers are bootstrapped with the guards and the tackles,
right,
and his option would have been roughly about $23 million. So I'm sure Baltimore's going to try to get a deal done. Highest paid center right now is Creed Humphrey at about $18 million a year. So I got to figure that's the reason they didn't exercise.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best in the NFL, all-pro. So you got to figure this is a technicality at this point, and they'll get it done. All right, we're just getting started.
You guys were in 2018 about Josh Allen. You guys wanted Josh Rosen, and now you guys are that we don't have a receiver. You just saw us do it without Stephon Diggs.
I do kind of wish they added speed.
We like our receivers. We feel strong about our receivers.
Tell them how you really feel, Brandon Beane.
Where do we need to get better? Defense. We did that. So I get it. You got to have a show, and you got to have something to think about. But about wide receiver is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
in that one, right? Obviously, that's Brandon Beane on Monday about all the criticism he received for the Bills not drafting a receiver. Yesterday, though, they did sign Elijah Moore to a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. Josh Allen, he's got to be the best quarterback that Moore's played with, so it'll be interesting to see what Moore does there. Okay, let's go to our former GM first. What did you think of the way he addressed the situation, Brandon Beane?
You know, Hannah, it's really hard to relate to this. GM getting criticized.
Yeah, I know. It never happens, does it?
I can't relate to this at all. You know, look, you get asked question after question about your vulnerability, what's ever perceived to be, and I think Brandon's like, you know what? We got a really good team. Do your homework. Ask me something different. I'm sure he was exhausted. He's a great guy. He's very confident. He has a lot to be proud of, so I think it was probably the wrong question on the wrong day.
Well, keeping receipts, though, to go all the way back to the Josh Rosen criticism. Mina, we saw you there. It was great that you were featured in that little piece. But they did go defense with their first 5 picks. So, I mean, what's your assessment of that draft in terms of their offense?
I think it makes sense that the draft was focused on defense. I'll start there. This offense was second league-wide in DVOA last year. The defense was 11th, which is still really good, obviously, but I do think there was a need to add talent, particularly on the defensive line and at cornerback, which is exactly what they did in the draft. And to go back to the offense and why they were so good last year, it's an offense that's really built inside out. The strength of the offense, outside of course Josh Allen, is the offensive line. They have a dominant run game. They have a lot of really good receivers, a lot of similar receivers, slot receivers, and I think they're betting on development from Keon Coleman, who was their first-round draft pick last year. Now, I stand by what I said in that clip. I do wish they had a little bit more speed in this group, but it is an excellent group, and when you got Josh Allen at quarterback, you have a guy who raises the floor of everybody.
And for me, this is under the axiom of, like, the good teams are the ones that let their opponents beat them before they ever beat themselves. If you look at Josh Allen last year, only 6 interceptions, only sacked 14 times. And sometimes the greatest improvement, and Amina just touched on it a little bit, is when you're returning young players get better. So Keon Coleman's one, but you think about, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, they're a little bit older, but I expect them to get better. But this is an offense that, to me, it's well coached. They were third in point differential, which speaks to the fact that they did score points, even though they don't have that explosive element. And then defensively, again, the offseason's a continuum. They signed a couple of players that are going to be suspended, so they sort of doubled down, and I thought that was really smart. And if you have to pick up a receiver like Elijah Moore, like you mentioned, Hannah, you can do that later on in the offseason. So I'm not going to disagree with Brandon Beane. I don't want to get yelled at.
Obviously. Mina?
I'm glad you mentioned Dalton Kincaid, because when I talked about development, I focused on Coleman. But, Mike, you're absolutely right. Like, that's a player who I just feel like still – his ceiling is a lot higher than what we have seen from him in the NFL. You've seen flashes of it, why they took him in the first round. I mean, to me, when we talk about guys who can really threaten vertically and make this offense more explosive, that's the kind of tight end he was in college. He is a seam stretcher. He's got wonderful hands downfield, but he hasn't become as dominant as I think his draft status and his potential, the tape suggests he could be. I mean,